Oh, forgot about the whole prayer thing. Just a second. What are the prayers? Things are happening. All right, so we'll start with making a short mandala offering as a token for requesting the teaching. Then Geshe will lead the way in the recitation of refuge and bodhicitta, and then we'll sail happily ever after to the horizon.
Sanji Chodan Soji Jonala Chancho Badu Dami Kyapsu Dagi Chuji Jiben Sonuji Rola Sanji Chodan Sanji Chodan Soji Jonala Chancho Badu Dami Kyapsu Dagi Jiben Sonuji Rola Sanji Chodan Sanji Chodan Soji Chonan La Chanchu Bardu Dani Kyapsu Dagi Chuji Jiben Sonum Jin Rola Peche Sanji Chobara Sho Kangi Tuzini Zone Tawa Tamji Pambi Chere Tambi Chun Tenzi Kundum Kyala Chanze Lo Good evening, everyone. Lasta Kazinganzu Jixude, some did ma Jixer was Rotinza Kazin Dalam Nasum Jonga said that Dalam said he told Machi. She a go to Surasta, Ratindi and it's a big lamadi and it's Soki lam, the jury lam, Tommy lam, Gombi lam, and it Mulubi lams that didn't enter Rangi teaching soon a Jamdi. And it's a big Tangachonga Ditigam and Roshak Dostra.
Just to briefly recap what we were speaking of in the last session. So Geshe started off with speaking of the presentation of the 5 paths. So we have 3 vehicles, right? So the vehicle of hearers, the vehicle of solitary realizers. These 2 are also called in Indian language Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. So we have 2 vehicles, and then another one, the Bodhisattva vehicle. Each one of them has a presentation of 5 paths, coming all together then to 15 paths. So we have the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and the path of normal learning. Each one of the 3 vehicles has a presentation of these 5 paths.
She do masam roches, Rakansina, Ganzuta, Tanganzu, and Tanganzu Chevario, the churching. The church Nangi, the Damasanji Jamden, Namasanji church only, and it Kiusumgi, that Kiu Chong Jing Chembosum, Kanjiki, and some of Majambar, Namasanji Chutelia.
So this is what we've been speaking of as of late. Now, you don't need to add to that too much thinking, in a sense that keep your mind confined to this topic. So first off, we speak of the 3 scopes of practitioners. So there is a small scope practitioner, a medium scope practitioner, a great scope practitioner. So if you don't train your mind in the steps of the path of any of those 3 types of practitioners, small, medium, or great, then in terms of what you practice, here we practice the Dhamma of the Buddha, the Bhagavan. Then in terms of what you practice, it wouldn't constitute a practice of the Buddha Dhamma if it's not included within any of those 3 scopes.
Ni kewa chima ngondo hada mi kombo tobi chedu ani tsentele ya chik Tsultrim songche ani samden komdengi namba mahim bala ya mambu ingor wasra.
So we begin with a small scope. Now, in terms of training one's mind in the sense of the path of the small scope, for something, for one's practice to become a practice of the Buddha, the teachings that the Buddha, the Bhagavan gave, then you need to look at the goal and the perspective of your study. To begin with, the scope of your study, of your practice. So to begin with, focusing on attaining a high state of rebirth in your next lifetime, and pursuing that, a higher state of rebirth, and for that end, guarding of ethical discipline. This is something that is found also in other traditions. So other traditions, outsiders or non-Buddhist traditions, speak of maintaining ethical discipline, guarding ethical discipline, and also cultivating a state of absorption as a way of securing a high status rebirth in one's next lifetime. No. Did I say something not kosher?
I was just thinking in terms of non-Buddhists, cultivating a high status rebirth next time. I was contemplating that for, those of Christian tradition, for example, who don't embrace that same idea of future life.
Jadi kerana nama main bayan dende Tsultrim suan tan something going dende chi yeres and suin ba. Jadi Quran di tola samatan wain na bena Yeshu chula dende pesher kia wa chima kecha dende chi yo marwa. Jadi dende ayos. So when Geshe was speaking of traditions outside of the Buddhist tradition, it's not that all of them have to accept that. Even if the Christian tradition doesn't accept or speak of future lifetimes and what one needs to do in order to secure that, then it doesn't mean that others don't do that.
아니 상하게 냠내tin데 다 그런주 다 상하게 민 따근데 간지 아니 디버도 다 콘솔이 지당기 배 따위톤이 시는 다 로가르마도 때 쮸비톤이 콘솔을 사부쇼든지 로당간 좀 마장을 마테를 마도 다가서 레라우레면도 asra.
So when the Buddhist tradition refers to outsider traditions, they normally refer to traditions that are now called the Tirthikas, which means those Hindu traditions that existed or still exist in India. And they have practices that they refer to, even practices as that are called by them secret mantra. So they also use mantra or secret mantra, whatever that entails. They will have their own explanation, but they speak about future lifetimes, higher status rebirth, the practice of the secret mantra. When we put aside for the time being the philosophical views, right? Let's not look at the philosophical views. When you look at what they actually put into practice, some of those things are quite deep and profound.
또 독자들이 땅이요 인고라서 간지 디조 참모로 콘솔에 지금 주에요 싸움단 비지 제여버디 and 세우차고라서
In terms of mantras or spells, it is said that even they use a form of black magic, involving certain forms of incantation, different mantras and so forth that carry a particular power. It is said that such things can be done in following those practices.
Ini pendu tuzugi ta namter ma sheondi ani medibi kebata pigiliyachi ani zabashu zedea gendur chedea tian dagaschi khani shebza mayimba zundur korang tonitni ani gendur chi lorgi mambu yoras tezu an dindigi be ani zundur toya ngonshi toya o dindigi konzulaya nyamne yungu yoras ro an kewachima want to let them combat to your Tsultrim so be any things about the useless.
There are certain accounts taken from the biographies of the great Nalanda masters. So in some of those accounts, you hear or read about certain interactions they had with Tirthikas, those non-Buddhist philosophers coming from the Hindu tradition. There were competitions sometimes that were carried out, conducted between Buddhist and non-Buddhist scholars. Not only they were competing for the erudition, but also in terms of magical powers. There was also some competition, even as far as competing over clairvoyance and the like. So also their ethical discipline as a way of securing a high status rebirth in the next lifetime was not something quite simple. It also was something that was deep and profound.
조차고레 디마치바 아니 친디기 zam기 친디 zam기 아니 디지질레 미니 다비 쳔냐야레 아니 쳔장야 토가 상담이나 디 남아 비냠네 로요 말스 로탄 로요 말스.
Anyway, we spoke a bit of that point. Let's get back to the main point. So Geshe said that in practicing the Buddha Dharma, when you look at what will constitute the practice of the Buddha Dharma, what will be considered the practice of the Buddha Dharma, it needs to be concerned at a bare minimum with what will occur to you in future lifetimes. Which means that if we listen to teachings, or if we put it into practice in thinking that I want to make this lifetime better, I'm concerned about my happiness and welfare in this lifetime, and for that reason, I'm studying the Dharma, I'm putting it into practice. You can do that, but what you do does not constitute a Buddhist practice. Now, it's not considered to be a Buddhist practice if your orientation is this life.
아니 부샤 토자 딘디질레 미치니 아니 다 로종고 도스 라디 잠발라야 아니 케브 딩기 삼바 잠바치 야 니버 되고 요레스 이제 케브 딩기 삼바 슬라온디 아니 다 단지 케브 딩기 삼바 잔디 아니 탈비기 공방 터버쳐발라야 아니 람가 섬정가 강여로마치 람가보스는 되었다 람가보 아니 냠술렌진 디톤은 조거로마도 젠 아니 조사 자우니 요마라스더라
And not only that, also we recognize that the main thing that we seek to accomplish is the state of liberation or the state of omniscience. That is the main goal. That is the main object of attainment. And for that end, we train our mind. So we train our mind then in the states of the path of a small scope practitioner. The attainment of the state of liberation depends upon training the mind in the states of the path of a medium scope being. So if to attain the state of liberation, this is what we need to train it. To put it more, to look at it in a more practical way, what we need to train our mind at is the 5 paths. There is no other way of attaining the state of liberation that falls outside of the training in the 5 paths.
델디자 땅에서 냠네 칸 지기가 봐야냐 냠네 칸 지기가 봐야냐 아니 람가 토가 수자니 람가 걸음단 통과하시는 로마도 봐이나 아니 율래야 또비온데 게세야 메시거지레스 계지 비길래야지 아니 춘주선남도 아니 직대스 깨봐야냐고 걸음다 마데나 아니 디 아니 직 타메비 야기로 세디 용야 요사마레스
Whatever we put into practice, you need to then look at your practice and work out how does it fit within the presentation of the 5 paths. How does it contribute to them? If you do not follow serially the 5 paths, you will not be able to develop realizations. If you confuse the order, the sequence of your practice, also you will not produce your desired goal.
대래 저당 간주지 냠네 아니 지 초그레 와서는도 덴디로 진 내대바이냐 비리야 자차고로다 텔레야 지딱 세마테스다 용예 요스기로스 이네 디게 먼저 탈투기 주제 탈투기 타와도 탐지 개발에 미미 조기야 바이나 델레 팸바지 다 용예 카고슈치 디차고로스.
So then you might take something into practice, and then your approach will still be partial in a sense that you're doing something, but it's still a partial approach to your practice. And it could be that you make some progress and there is some indication that something is happening, that something is happening, that you're making progress in your practice. And yet, in terms of it contributing to the state of liberation or the state of omniscience, if your practice is partial, there will not be much improvement. You'll not be progressing quite much if your attitude is partial.
아니 직 덴드리 덴산 캬버진지 토베야야 아니 직 딩키버지 총바이느야 대zam긴 간소 로이 쯤 되나 아니 주저타두디 다 아니 퉁구요 말았어 간소 탈두고 주저다 타와데 탐지케마 세대야기니 퉁구요 말았어 대zam긴 간소라야 아니 로이 쯤은 지금은 배는 간소 때 첸들이야 수수르야고 송체 직 차와자마를 마지도 스피다 마네도다 아니 슈데바이나야 아니 지가라몰라야 지게와치마 아니 덴드텐산지도 톱투그르 삼비 딩츠 니바니야들이 덴데 용초요레스 라 용가요레스 이네 대zam기 아니 간좀 지와레스 지고요 말았어 간좀 주자타 두투고요 말았지.
So for example, in this lifetime you can take up a spiritual practice to the point in which you'd be convinced, you have the confidence, conviction that you've done enough in order to secure a good working basis in your next lifetime. And if you become complacent with that, with just being satisfied that you've done whatever it takes in order to attain a good working basis in your next lifetime, then whatever you practice would still not accord with pursuing the states of liberation or omniscience. So we can do different things, different practices in our lifetime. We can guard ethical discipline in a good way. We can do different recitations, the Mani mantra and so forth. We can do all of that in still being oriented towards just attaining a good state of rebirth in our next lifetime. And you can become quite confident that you've done enough in order to do that. But if you remain complacent with that and you think that that's enough, well, it's not enough.
Dendri tenzang tobi ta chik ding zang mendriwa ma se ani se dela ya chik tabi komba toya gi ding toba samjik ya yik sam de chik rem dos nganzu chu nimbo tartu bati ani se toshi di tamje gi komba sangi komba di nganzu ta drumja tadu di chagoras di toba la ya ani ding tamba gogoras tande di ene Geshe chanju samozola ya rangi sanji kombo toyela ya ding toba tsang mase ani pila ya be kichi temata do be ani sanji kombo toyela tande bezun manche rangi lunga yiso yonsu zoba pila ya ani kandisin tango chona ya tangi yoras ra.
So then you might avoid being complacent with just attaining a good status rebirth in your next lifetime. If you become complacent with the conviction that you can attain the state of liberation, even in that lifetime, that also, in some sense, it's not good enough. Our final goal within the Buddhist tradition is to attain the state of omniscience, the state of Buddha. So bodhisattvas, for example, the spiritual children of the Buddhas, work with convictions. They work hard, put a lot of effort into their progress, and they expedite their own attainment of the state of enlightenment. They do whatever it takes right away, straight away, in order to bring about the attainment of the body, of the state of Buddha. So they act with the body, with the speech, with the mind, in order to make that happen.
Rabina take one maybe Nenjobo Sogatini the Yamlin Chichin, Tarvi Combato, Tawa Deanti, Tawa and Yandi, and Tami Yandi, one Chichin, Kanji, and Shivi Devalaya, Nene, and be Kava the Yambasha, Tindi Yungoras, that don't have only in Medisabala, that Devabashi, Tolia Nature, Taharang pe Yixambarochi, and shooting a chondi, and Carso Taji, Shezamashuna, and Sanjam de took Mazu so the Nanchin, and Kara Dose, and Shivi Devalaya, then Tandakara, we tension the Druyo Mares, can Sanji Combato, Zungori, can Shidele Yamasha did Digmares, Vesagaton, and Shidele Jobbing. And it did Lord you did yours.
Then Hinayana yogis work through the practice in order to attain the state of liberation. So when they attain the state of liberation, they attain the state of nirvana. And for eons on end, they dwell on the bliss of peace, having attained the state of non-abiding nirvana. So they become complacent with remaining in that bliss of peace. Then at some point, the Buddha, the Bhagavan, arouses them from that state in which they remain upon the bliss of peace, and they say that you haven't accomplished your final goal. There is still work to be done. You haven't completely attained the state of perfection, and they exhort them to continue on. They arouse them from the bliss of peace.
예, Geshe chanju samba zuge 아니 람냠슬렌당 림바톨이야 난주직 성당 토반더니 시니 등등한 주기 아니 직 저번냐는 제단디 아니 저니니 직 사주 여버직 제투메바디 복투로 왔어 이게 딱직 심진 지기 제도 아니 직 까와 몽골이야 아니 매동 내고ሾ나야 아니 긴지 메게베 아니 가르사다 아니 존주 파실 저버 챙기려세 물론게데 딘디어스 딘지 톨레상 지당외나 안간주기 아니 지 산지 토비체도 저번냐는 지역 배춘로디 가주스 엔투위메디 시니 하고서라스라
So then in terms of the path to Buddhahood, when we practice the path to Buddhahood, we need to make sure that we do not become complacent or narrow in our attitude with respect to where we are or what we do at the moment. We need to develop that far-reaching attitude that is similar to the one that bodhisattvas develop. Like, for example, if he said, please bless me to develop joyous effort, that is not daunted in the working for the sake of others. Even should I stay in a burning pit or eons on end, I will not lose courage. Please bless me to have that form of, that type of joyous effort. So this is how a practice should be inspired, right? Not just thinking of what we can get from it now, but thinking of the big picture, what is needed and the time span that is needed in order to attain the state of Buddhahood.
and say dig dog Thompson ya Chong Tanche, Ra, the super Le Tanche, the Betsu Carso Touch, Shujanagoras, the Ra.
So then when we look at the life stories, the accounts of the great masters of the past, bodhisattvas and so forth, we can see how in order to pursue the path that leads to the state of omniscience, they relinquished affairs that belong to this lifetime in terms of food and clothing and social interactions. They relinquished that, sacrificed that in order to focus on the path that leads to Buddhahood.
These are done some dancing, and that take Kanzal Tamatuna, Nimachiki, and it dog Tamsonia, Lutan to go to the individual Matuna, Shuda, and it Sidi Togu Tamson you Durundi, and it showed Sidi Togu Tamson Lutan Matuna, that we should the shoots actually love Dena Madena. And that Nimachiki and it Tofubakan, the Jibijamatunich. So the shadow was ra.
So then when we think about giving up or relinquishing affairs of this life, food, clothing, and social interactions, then let alone relinquishing it or giving it up for the rest of your life, think about it. If you cannot do it now, think about at least doing it for one day. For one day, sacrificing, giving up on those affairs, food, clothing, and social interactions. So if we cannot do it even for a single day, then that gives us the idea of what our priorities are in terms of our practice. So sometimes kind of when we compare, even as far as just one day, Dhamma practice versus our involvement with food, clothing, and social interactions, we might brag about the importance of the practice of Dhamma and how precious it is to practice the Dhamma. But if we're still incapable of giving it up, even for a single day, it shows us what a priority, what is our priority in an actual sense.
장보를 땡 걸 세지. 장보 간지 아니 이게 벤저다 딘디 지 규자라 아니 뭐 딘디 지 맹인 지 내다 차와이나 아니 간조 도질이야 아니 최태야디 마 용거였어. 뭐다 간조래야 지 벤저다 딘디 지 아니 튕긴 아니 쇼지여 봐이나 디코랑 게 익심지네 생래야 최싸우니 테마토게 잘 년가 빼치 모인 것도 왔어.
So then, when we look at how we become perfect practitioners, right? Real or perfect practitioners that work in order to attain the state of liberation, we can take example from the great masters of the past. Like, for example, it is said that in order to be able to do that, you need to be living like a beggar. So to be living like a beggar, in a sense that like being bereft of wealth, money, possessions, and so forth, living like a beggar. So if we can live like that, it is likely that we'll have more space or more room for the practice of the Dhamma. After all, when we have quite much in terms of shelter and money and possessions and so forth, so you can become so complacent and satisfied with what you have now that you'll not even think of practicing the Dhamma. There is a danger that something like that could happen.
예, 나 밑상마다 말했지. 내가 망치야지 먼저 지 최징이 최된이니 망치야지. 아도는지 아니 이다 가서 남주다 지템비 계절이야다 지 야튼 거 롱바 나와야. 야튼 징 롱베 나와야. 간지 벤주 아니 비부여서 롱베 나와야. 최된이니 망치야지. 아니 강아지 태지 자만디가지 용화를 때니 최대는 얘기 마도 기부 대부지 기피야 자티고 지영에서 아니 베니뇨로스
So looking at the way that we have encountered the Dhamma, of course, when we look at the different ways in which we've encountered the Dhamma, it's not that it happens in the same way, exactly in the same way for everyone, but looking at us practitioners of the Dhamma, living in a developed country, which means coming from a wealthy background, from a wealthy country, many people encounter the Dhamma, or they think of practicing the Dhamma, a spiritual path, having encountered some difficulties, some problems. So few are the people that live a happy life, have no problems or issues, and they still look for spiritual practice.
디자다 나다 와라야 고 강아지 태바이나 아니 최상야 군조래야 캡주야디 용구여레스 용구여레스 디자 아니 나다 와라야 아니 벤조디 메나야 거스타죠 이하바이나 델랑 고 코르치 아니 메지도 존로야 닝가 피치부여라스
Geshe said that for someone like him, when he looks at himself, then at a time of experiencing problems or encountering difficulties, then his mind turns to refuge in the three jewels. So since this is what his orientation is, then in some sense, it's actually better not to have a lot of wealth, not to have a lot of money. It's more conducive.
Till then, dinza kanga dindiji thought that chulaya ju, then chujang, to jondi, and chug nengaya buti, and it is similar ratravana, tenita, and a similar Gomeva Chiglia, Chile, Tebata, and a tona. Then it chug one inch number cherry, and it goes to Saras.
So in that sense, thinking of a certain scenario, so you encounter difficulties, then your mind is turning towards the Dhamma, the practice of the Dhamma, and you get to think about your situation, to think about the Dhamma, you put it into practice, and from that, a transformation occurs. You develop faith in the Dhamma. You come to see it in a way that is deeper and clearer.
That music ko Kyawang Nami, and it's Sosa Janda, Pasha Sambala Penny, and Sedelia to Suzo, and a Masanya Pudaya, Yea, and Yinaya, Joy Yonaya, Ranjing Chilaya, and a Toma, Yan Chito Sambala Che, and Chetona Yon so. Tindia ko richly Yungioris, that the Koyan Kokoran Sonam Chiton, Yungioras, Mother Manche Kangaji Tevana.
There are people that have accumulated, that have done quite a few things in the past lifetime. So they have accumulated the collections, they've purified negativities and obscurations, they've placed some imprints upon the continuum. It depends upon all of this in this life. They were born to a good family. They have those opportunities, the things that are conducive. They've encountered some good friends and they turn the mind towards Dhamma, even though they haven't experienced difficulties or problems. That could occur due to having accumulated merit in one's past lifetimes.
타와드 탐진기 공반디 라 민규이 대바디 타와드 탐진기 공반이 있다 아니 네바레스 다 딩이 드바 제발이야 딩이 토바 제발이야 다 소사 드바 장 세디 라 아니 람랄랍 세디 다 딩이 고츠기 요라스 라.
But for most of us, it's not like that. For most of us, it's having encountered some difficulties or problems that we discovered are the interest. Anyway, if you do discover some interest, then the beginning point would be the wish for happiness. So we wish for happiness, and we will look at the type of happiness that we wish for, that we seek. We seek the one that is immutable in the sense that it is everlasting. The type of happiness and well-being you get in the state of liberation or the state of omniscience. And for that end, we need to accumulate the collections to purify negativities and obscurations along the progression, through progressing along the steps of the path.
That's also the Bajans long. That Lamga so journey. That's also the Bajan Dandi. Lamga Korum the Tumbi Tonta, Jargo Yores. That did Lam Tangota, Sogi Lam slide, Kazima Jishusela, that so Sabika Lam. And Deliata, Sogi Lams. That's so Karsagore sag, that Chivala Soba, and Sogun Karre sag. That is some allegros, raw.
So if we need to accumulate the collections and to purify obscurations in order to do that, we do that through progressing in sequence, in the right sequence along the steps of the path. So if we need to accumulate the collections, certain questions might arise in your mind. What are we talking about? What are the collections? What is the entity, the nature of the collections? How do I go about and do that? All those questions arise.
Terida, ani the two dinganzoge, and sok sadi, Pigilea, Gulayajar, Ra, so the Gulayajar, Gutelayata, Sonum git sodan, Ishi soset, Nisha, that dingy pig, Jebu Sangi Gulayajar. And do sound down that any pen any Semlia, 바쁘다 니부지 영향도 왔어요.
When those questions arise, then we start addressing them. To begin with, when we speak about amassing the collections, there are two collections. There is a collection of merit and the collection of exalted wisdom, exalted knowledge. These are the two collections. And when you train your mind stream, your continuum, you accumulate those two accumulations in relation to your mind stream, to your continuum. And correspondingly, you attend the two Buddha bodies.
됐다. 딱 간단히 인구를 쓰라는데, 난주기 그래서 트레드다. 난주기 제부세디 귤도 그래서. 다 제부 귤도 대한 귤이 tum비 귤을 때는 기그리마도 문tum비 귤을 때는 기그 말했어. 기그마르스디 그 기그마르스 라바자 많이 받디 응업은 순 만주 통대하게 빼나 아니 만주 론체 대하게 지금 주리라 써봐 신도라 써봐 가리 임바이나 코란도 틈비 규제를 때니 아니 제블로도 민글도 마도 민트비 규제를 때니 용금에 받다 만주 원선 통투그라스 대벨라 샤브 토니 아니 템비 아니 제블 산기 공방이 있나요 아니 규 코란도 틈비 규제를 토니 중국어에서 다 탈투 산지 고순 특수미 임바이네야 아니 게 코란도 tum비 토니 아니 고순 특수미 중국어로마도 아니 민트비 규제를 때니 중국에 와디 견제 참말로 로단식 바레스
So the two accumulations result in attaining the Buddha Bodhis. So we speak about a result, attaining a certain result. So a result arises from its compatible corresponding causes and conditions. It cannot arise from causes and conditions that are not compatible with it. It can only arise from compatible causes and conditions. So we can, first of all, recognize that clearly when you will look at external things, like for example, if you work a field, right? So you plant something in your field, you know that whatever you want to grow, whatever crop, fruit, whatever you want to grow, it comes from corresponding causes and conditions. It is impossible to aspire for a certain yield, a certain crop in your field, and to plant or cultivate causes and conditions that are not compatible with it. You know, the result that you want will not arise. So we know that, right? We know that if you're looking for a particular harvest in your field, you need to plant the right seeds to create the right causes and conditions, the corresponding one. So similarly, with respect to the result of Buddhahood, it can only come about through its compatible causes and conditions. So we want to attain the body, speech, and mind of Buddhas. And they come from corresponding causes and conditions, compatible causes and conditions. The body, speech, and mind of Buddha cannot arise from causes and conditions that are not compatible with them.
그래서 딘자다 아니 제부 산기기 꾸순 투순구나 그 조디 꾸다 투니나 라 산기 꾸순 조야 규칙이래 산기 투 넘버 탐진 김비 20 조야 규칙 균이 소니디 조디토네 샤고레스 20 소스라운디 산기 투 넘버 탐진 김비 아니 조식이 규텔이야 20 소스고레스 아니 비기기 아니 그 아니 셈비기 비기 아니 고주드야 götel야 손은 그 속세거레스 라 데디르다 속사야기 속조디 되니사고 왔다.
So then in terms of thinking of the resultant body, speech, and mind of Buddha, they have their corresponding causes and conditions. At least when we narrow it down to looking at the Buddha body and the Buddha mind, we can identify more precisely the causes that produce the result of a Buddha body and a Buddha's mind. So we link them up with the two collections. We spoke about the collection of merit and the collection of exalted wisdom, exalted knowledge. The accumulation of exalted knowledge contributes to the causes for accomplishing the resultant Buddha mind. The accumulation of merit contributes to the causes for accomplishing a Buddha body, a Buddha body with the major marks and minor signs.
Re tati karislam tati chikshujan digogire. Ta sangi pena ta sangi kudruya gyudi ngaransolya ngaransu tachi karsota ani kewa thoma mevane ranchi su yebi ani ta churchik teni ani sangi kudru drugo yer mato chi pena mi shenji ki zan lenchini digi mangbalaya rangi tojaji sangi ani kuzu drugaji yomares ro.
Now we need to think about it. We need to think about it in terms of, first of all, asking ourselves, why is the presentation given in this way? Why are we speaking about the two collections contributing to a Buddha mind and a Buddha body? Well, when we think of what we seek to accomplish are the bodies of Buddha. Now, in order to pursue that, we use something that we have innately since time without beginning. In order to accomplish a Buddha body, it's not that we need to receive something from another person. It's not that only if someone else would give us a particular ingredient, then we'll be able to attain the Buddha body. We use something that exists innately for us since time without beginning in order to attain that.
Dira da nganzu ge subu na shinchi sangi kuzu di nganzu subu na shinchi chagi yo marwas nganzu subu ro jimba na ani phami khudala teni ani chugiyores inza nganzu subu di mi sheng zan su chi yar shawa na shinchi ro nganzu tan chunju na yo na mi sheng zan su yar sha ju ro Mission and 3 years of Chaladi mission of a Trego Horas. Kanji Sosu Ken Drosa Yomaras, that are Sosul Tagomaras. It's a Nanzu Supu di Nanzula Tagamavadi. And let's say Kazus Degan, Lord Jipchung of Chuchu Dunchi Kazita, Mana Yarhalatochi. Mandon said Degoma, Tirilla, Pejitini, Sepu Unimodelia, Su, you drogo does. The kinds of 담번님 수술을 란치 좀 해봐. 미산 수 이알샤기 잘라지 차건자 그수 아니 뒤비 타마 타와디 춘이르서 다가란 차고 그랬어.
So then in thinking of attaining Buddha body, we have a body such as this, and this body cannot become a Buddha body. It cannot become a Buddha body. It's not like that in a sense that thinking of, to begin with, the process of the creation or evolution of this body. This body was created upon the meeting of sperm and ovum that came to us from a mother and father, or father and mother. So in that sense, it's like we have borrowed those substances, those ingredients from a mother and father. And because those substances are borrowed, at some point we'll have to give it back. This is actually how Shantideva speaks about it in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life. He speaks about the impermanent nature of the body. And he says that thinking about how this body came to us, it came to us from substances that were contributed by a mother and father. So in that sense, it is like on a loan. There will come a time in which you'll have to give it back. So however long we will live, it might be 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years or so, upon the transference of life, which means upon death, the body will be discarded. It will be discarded because since this body was established from things that came to us from another person, it is like in the nature of every meeting, there is separation. We will have to be separated from this body to leave it behind.
Tiri dinza nganzu subudi ane sachi nyewalembi pumbos min korala ya nyewalembi pumbos ane su lembares laundi ane sachi leta nyumumbi toni ane karsota datu sonchini leni ane ludi tus trusha girochi ane di thorundi ane ludi ransing thotu goyachi ra ludi yunun goyachi chagido as tiri.
So we call this body in Buddhist terminology the contaminated appropriated aggregate. This is how we call it, the contaminated appropriated aggregate. So who is the appropriator in that sense? The appropriators are contaminated karma and afflictive states of mind. They have appropriated this body and made this body their own. And there will come a time in which it will have to be discarded.
Tere dinza da sanji kusu di en tinji mares nganzu gitam ji sosa derjan chechini mahumbala ya en sanji kumbang undi cheju sanji kusu di shengzani yashao mayimba ranchi su yebi chuji toni en driwon di 가두이는 디 톱스를 질러야 가두이는 데니 아니 걔가 난지 동아요 무고야 아니 아니 겐질라 라몬 토비야 디야 그 윤센직 토니 윤구요레스로.
Now, if you wonder why are we speaking about this body that we have now coming from ingredients that we borrowed from someone else, and then at some point in time we'll have to give it back, or we'll have to discard this body. We contrast this body, instead of this body, with a Buddha's body. A Buddha's body is amassed, or is created, from the amassing of the collections. And then what it means is that we use something that exists innately for us, certain feature, certain phenomenon that exists innately for us. And since from the thing that exists innately for us, we can accomplish the Buddha's body, we can then attain a state in which there would be no more birth, sickness, aging, and death. We will gain freedom from those states.
데레다 베나 간주기 간주 체표온디기 아니 남시디 드고로스 개치말라 드고로스 라 아니 루디 피글야다 amna and sagola nengoya omna mela tragoya amna kono judoya so omna chuna yu o dindi chin lut la do dos di kharesna ani semdi ko ranchi suye bi chudinza ani nganzu nyamdi yungores ra yungores ludi ko shenza ni yarinza shago dos ta ranchi suye bi chuji toni ani sangi ani kud drugo was dinza 단단한 nganzu ya ranchi suibi chuchi ane sangi kuzu ngon doronchi yorwe sech sangi tuk ngon number 3 kimbe yishi ngon dorongi chuchi nganzu la yorwe sech tikta nenga sangi rigdi manzu nenga chimbuchi sangi rig yodame tola shededi dire kedzi timji ngon dorong chuchi nganzu la mena teni tang nganzu sangi kombo drugins lawena ane rewa tawars the yoba inza nganzule rewa yakshu di nganzule sangi rig yoba inza nganzu sangi drukore sede ane dingzu chimbu toni keje shede nganzule rig yoba inza sangi ku ngondorungi ane gyujaji nganzule ya ranchi siyore sangi tuk ngondorungi ane gyujaji nganzule ranchi siyonza dele ya bezonchini di tuk ngondle ya ane juntu gugudus juntu guramba di nyamning guramba nenga soch dire dos ra.
Upon the transference of life, which means upon a death, we the body will be left behind. In some sense, there are different ways of taking care of the body or disposing the body. The consciousness will continue with us to our next lifetime, but the body will be left behind, will be either buried or cremated, or just be left to decay, or it will be thrown or cast to a river, whatever might be the way of disposing of the body, it will be left behind. So then when we think of what is the thing that exists innately with us that can be used in order to accomplish a Buddha's body, it is clear that this is not the body that we have now, because that would be discarded upon the transference of life. So what then is the thing that exists innately for us that will go with us to the end, that will become a Buddha's omniscient mind that knows all aspects, all phenomena? What is it? Well, we call it Buddha nature. The different names for that: Buddha nature, or Buddha lineage, Buddha family. This is what we have that can become a Buddha body, that can become a Buddha's omniscient mind. This is what we speak about. This is what we speak of when we speak of Buddha nature or Buddha family. If we have it, there is a hope for us to attain a Buddha body, a Buddha mind in the future. If we have no such Buddha family or Buddha type, Buddha nature, there is no hope that we will be able to accomplish in the future a Buddha body. So we have something like that. And this is what we need to nourish. This is what we need to develop. And this is what we develop through the progression along the steps of the path. This is the primary thing that we work with when we progress along the steps of the path.
어디리 딘자다 ngonzulya ta ranchi suyaba ani thattu sanji kodam ani thugi ngomdorondi zo di ani semgton namshigton shago wores ra ta re namshigton ani tu number tamji ki yishi ngomdro yabata ta namshig kan tensagta pigi ani jon tamu senatigoda long term potenti jikitoni ani sanji ani ku ngongores inza sanji kodi tachi nganzu sanji konje matuyati ani gunzen dia dinti jikitoni ro nganzu la ya dinti ani jik lutamot me kasota lutamot pile ngon keme ani sheng lutamodi ani tongtuyagi ani Shiva de Medi, and Sanjin Jetuga Mares. Mado Sanjin Jetungi Jimbaina, and Devalayata, and Sanji, and Musu de Yoba. Musu Yobati, Geshe Jares, in the Antangan Jetuga Mares. The thing go good Kejato, so Nini Summer that the Mares.
So there is something that exists for us naturally or innately that makes it possible for us to attain a Buddha body and a Buddha mind. We call it Buddha nature, that which is suitable to become a Buddha body, right? So we speak about a Buddha body, physical body, or a Buddha's mind. And the basis for having that thing that can become a Buddha body is our own mind. So the thing that exists for us naturally, that Buddha nature, Buddha lineage, is posited based on the mind, in relation to the mind. So we have something that can become a Buddha's mind and a Buddha's body. With respect to that thing that can become a Buddha's body, you can look at it in a variety of ways, but what Geshe reckons that what we get at the end is having this subtle element, subtle wind that a Buddha body is made of, right? So we have that ingredient, that thing. And this is also what a Buddha's body is made of. So currently, in a current situation, we cannot see a Buddha in actuality, or Buddha's body in actuality. And this is because we haven't manifested yet that subtle element, that subtle wind. It's not that we don't have it, we have it, but we haven't made it manifest yet. And since we haven't made it manifest yet, then we will not be able to see the manifest body of a Buddha, or the body of a Buddha that is made of that manifest subtle element, subtle wind. So it's not that the Buddhas are not here at the moment. They are here. They are, you could say, present here. But since the body is made of that subtle wind, and we haven't made manifest the subtle wind that exists in our continuum, then we cannot really see a Buddha in actuality. But it's not to say that they're not here. So when we speak of not being able to see a Buddha, it's not that we just kind of try to deceive you or to trick you. It is probably the reason for not being able to see a Buddha in actuality.
Tel dinzata nganzula ya sanji gu kudang tugi ngung rorongi liba yobati jasa jatamba res. Ta dinji gu liba yobati ane sanji gu kudang tugi ane ya kandrasigi rogri islami ane nganzu namju pegi ta jik lodok taba nangshin. Sabian tela ya devuki ya liba yores. Inaya sabian de ta rang ane jik King Kami Mancheva, Tagara Shazavana, Tagaran de Amato, Jeboloto, Tumaras, Delia, Pilia, Sana, Lukoya, Luchulukoya, Luche, do some any King Tawandi, Kolaya, Jebushagoras, the Nanshingi, Nanzula Yogi, Sanji, Nibatelia, any Tungian Sangores, Tungian Sayalata, Sosa, said, Ro, the Tungian Sosa.
So we have that potential for transformation into a Buddha's body and a Buddha's mind. That potential, that ability exists for us. So what are we to do with that? Well, it's just like, if you think about it in terms of a seed, we have the seed for making that happen. But if you take a seed that has the potential to develop into a certain crop, but you just keep that seed without making it meet with its conducive conditions, it will not produce anything if you just leave it like that. But if you plant it in earth, you provide it with water, food, and so forth, it will produce the plant or what you're planning. So likewise, we have the seed for a Buddha's body and the Buddha's mind, and we need to provide it with the conducive conditions for bringing forth the Buddha's body. So what are those conducive conditions? Well, there are the accumulations, gathering the accumulations.
Tajik sanji tan thong mi deja pi tajik hajang kawa samboda tajik lodzen nombu yongi ani sherab nibu yongi ani deja richila ya ani hachoni sonde ta ani kani ji yongdas yongyores rat tiri kani ji yongores.
Okay. So then, in terms of accumulating those collections, there's a way that is done by a common disciple, right? A common disciple whose mind stream is to be tamed. And then there is a way of doing that for a unique disciple. Now, some disciples, some students are fortunate. They have strong or sharp faculties. They have wisdom that is swift. So they have also their own particular way of amassing the collections for attaining the Buddha bodies.
Dan dojo ni jikin dordu zamro shiva naro ani 당한주기 choba piyare, and chansiyare, and chilamalaya, toba piyare, to some lo, and sanji kuzu druyagi, gulayan drogoris. Ra, and kaji kuzu druyagi, gure, kaji sanji with say, and sanji with say, and dujalaya, chimbeme kepi, and nayaki, and it and in chilila soba, indi gulayan drogodas, ra, to some could you yanjila teni. Joins the individual and drugores.
Sorry, I should have said that the ways of accumulating the collections taught for common disciples were taught in the sutra system, whereas the ones that were taught for a unique disciple were taught in the secret mantra system. So then we find certain things that were taught in the sutra system for amassing the collection. So making offerings, making prostrations, praising the qualities such as the Lama, the spiritual friends, and so forth. All of these contribute to the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha. But not only that, also when Buddhahood is attained, then one will be able to spontaneously enact the welfare of others. That will come through the accumulation of the collection.
Mahumbalaya Rani Sanji Kum and Kusumund and Kurtuyagi Guyan and Drovers. Guyan and Drovers.
Maybe
100%.
Like, for example, constructing a statue contributes to the cause and conditions for manifesting a Buddha body in the future. To that I said maybe. And Geshe said 100% guaranteed.
100%
So maybe we'll leave this session here for now in the 100% certainty. So before we leave it here for now, so just wanted to let you know that there will be also a morning session tomorrow. Geshe will continue with his review of the status of the path based on Lama Tsongkhapa's presentation. At 12:30 tomorrow, his honors will begin with
1:30.
12:30. Yes, 1:30? 1:30. Sorry. No. I'm kind of my biological clock is totally skewed. Anyway, tomorrow 1:30. According to our time, Eastern time, His Honor Dalai Lama will start giving a Chinrezig empowerment, so it will be done over tomorrow and the day after. So you can check his website, www.dalailama.com, or just check it out on YouTube because it will probably be live streamed. So sometimes His Honor starts those events earlier, so if you have time, then probably tune in at 1 o'clock. Make sure that you do not miss out and live long, happily ever after. So we'll leave it here for now. I'll put the prayers on the screen. Chanchu semcho boche magi bana ke yuji ke wanyamba me bayang gone gondo bewa shoge gewadi nyudo da masage drugu dowa chikya malupa de salago pasho kangri rawe kore shinkanzu pendan dewa malu chungwe chenre siwa tenzi gyazoi Shabesindi Partu Tinguru Chi Dotsu Chanchi Jangun Yawe Tenzi Yombe Wengunzo Dobozi Chosun Kowe Bemontu Panda Sodu Shigondo Shadi
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Good night, Lindsay and Ellie. Yeah, they're here. Saw them. Jen channel. Good night.